Now's the time that the focus is really on the clean-up.
Northern Rivers residents spent the weekend in the mud. Flood-affected residents continue the mammoth clean-up effort.
Prime Minister Morrison has toured Lismore, declaring the floods an unprecedented national emergency.
The water is rising. No more compromising.
Out of COVID isolation, he was in town, but not on the streets with the victims of this disaster.
For close to 2 hours this morning, the opposition leader walked through town, taking in tales of narrow escapes and surveying the mountainous losses.
Particularly when you think of the era where you don't have, thank you, the community.
It's still so raw in the government, that 2019-2020 bushfire response where Scott Morrison had those awkward scenes with people in Cobargo forcing handshakes. The 2.0 version of that was very much a different situation where it was very stage managed as he re-emerged from his COVID isolation.
I think it was one of those things where he was damned if he did and damned if he didn't. He couldn't not go, but in going, there was going to be anger directed at him. So I think that left, from a political point of view, his managers not many options, so it had to be stage managed. But I do wonder if he couldn't have just done something more like Dominic Perrottet and be willing to go into the street and cop a bit of blowback. And maybe that's going to be vicious in the moment, but maybe it's a bit cathartic as well.
I think very risky strategy. I think this is
why
case,
I'm not a media manager.
This is a classic case where you wanted to be seen to be there, but actually not be seen at all there. He didn't want to have a Cobargo because he's already electorally unpopular. He didn't want to affirm an impression that's really set hard.
Labor Senator Kimberley Kitching, who's died suddenly of a suspected heart attack, is being remembered today.
Passionate, fearless, a politician with a purpose.
Kitching earned international acclaim as a driving force behind Australia's...
The stress of politics and the machinations in the back rooms had its toll. She was greatly stressed. You do wonder if she would have been better off never going near politics.
Penny Wong, Christina Keneally and Katie Gallagher, who she privately described as mean girls, say the allegations are...
To describe those she claimed had bullied, ostracised and isolated her.
At the first sign of hard questions, he has gone into complete hiding. Frankly, I think it's pretty gutless.
I had a number of one-on-one meetings with Kimberley. At no stage did she complain to me about any issues at all.
The death of Kimberley Kitching was shocking in the moment, but what was so surprising was how quickly it became so political in just even the hours after her death.
She was barely an hour dead when suggestions, reports, commentary from her parliamentary friends was that she was being bullied. What was surprising and what was so problematic about Anthony Albanese's response in particular about her claims of being bullied was that it opened up Labor to accusations of hypocrisy and double standards.
Kimberley Kitching is such a complex person and she comes with enormous history. The idea that she was bullied because she wasn't allowed to keep a position on a tactics committee, or that she wasn't being treated well by or trusted by the leadership of the Senate, that was presented without any regard to a 20 or 30 year history of absolutely bitter and acrimonious factional action and union behaviour by both her and her husband that makes those allegations seem minor and petty in comparison to some of the things she herself had done in earlier parts of her political life.
There's a lot I could say about the unpleasantness of a cantankerous cabal, not all of them in Parliament, that was aimed at Kimber.
I've made my views very clear outside this place about some of that misplaced anger and blame. I will not return anger with anger or blame with blame.
The halo has definitely slipped from Penny Wong, who is one of the Labor Party's star performers. She's been damaged out of this.
One of the less reported elements of the Kate Jenkins review into the culture at Parliament House was that men are the perpetrators of sexual assault and sexual harassment. But the report found that when you look at bullying, 61% of the perpetrators were women, and that this isn't necessarily a gendered question, it's a question about power.
Powerful explosions reverberated through the streets.
Apartment buildings in the capital are under attack again.
For God's sake, this man cannot remain in power.
I call to everyone, every civilian, please spend the time, if it's possible, in bunkers.
Now, Ukraine's president is scheduled to address the Australian Parliament in just a few minutes.
Whatever is happening in our region because of the Russian aggression, what is destroying the lives of people, has become a real threat to your country and to your people as well.
If you think back to 2001, it was a coalition government in power, seizing on a national security debate with September 11. This time around, Scott Morrison's trying to get that car key campaign, but the difference is people aren't nervously sitting in their houses waiting for Putin to come storming in like they might have been with Osama bin Laden.
I think there's a time of high anxiety, both economically and in a sort of security sense, global security sense. Does it help Scott Morrison? Well, he's going to give it a fair crack, I would think, because his point and his pitch to voters will be uncertain times economically, uncertain times given Russia's flex in Ukraine and China's mischief elsewhere. Do you really want to throw any more uncertainty in it by switching teams from blue to red?
I do think there's a risk that they need to be careful not to over-egg it. They've made comments about it being the most uncertain time in 80 years, and that's probably a little overblown given some of the global manoeuvrings we've had in the last 80 years. So it's a delicate balance that they have to draw.
There is a lot of pressure on the Treasurer's shoulders to deliver a vote-winning budget for a government bad.
Well, I'll have to donate.
Tackling the soaring cost of living will be the centrepiece of Tuesday's federal budget.
Third in 18 months, fourth since becoming Treasurer, Andrew.
To Canberra now, where Josh Frydenberg is preparing to hand down his fourth budget.
Josh Frydenberg promises his fourth budget will have a focus on tackling cost of living pressures.
Once again, this budget will reflect the character of this government. A government that's always long on politics but short on plan.
This will be a panicked, desperate, tapped-out budget from a panicked and desperate and clapped-out government.
We need you all good, mate. All good, my friend.
Your family okay? Yeah. This is a budget for Australian families.
Excellent, thank you.
What this budget tells us, there's huge amounts pouring in to the government coffers, right? Largely because of the lower unemployment rate, but commodity prices as well. And I think the test was always going to be how much of that do they splash before the election. I actually think they've been relatively restrained here. They have been kind of targeted. I think the fuel excise cut, it's pretty hard to argue that's sensible policy, and it's a 22-cent cut, which...
For 6 months.
Yeah, for 6 months. Good luck to whoever wins the election, putting it back up at the end of September. But that's a problem for so far away. There's a whole election to get
kicking
through.
that petrol can down the track.
Yeah, but look, you know, the reason economists don't like this idea, and the policy analysts, you won't find one who says this is a good idea. It costs a huge amount, right? This is costing $3 billion for just 6 months, and will voters notice it? Will motorists notice it? Maybe some, but I don't know. I suspect a lot will shrug their shoulders at this. So.
The handouts are interesting because it's pensioners, veterans. They'll get that handout next month, and conveniently they get that before they go to the election.
The strongest argument from this budget for the government, right, is how the economy has recovered, particularly over the last 6 months, because it's really, you know, you see it in the jobless rate, not just the forecast, but what's actually happening now. And that's a strong story for them. Labor's not going to pick a fight over any of the handouts, right? They're not going to stand in the way of a voter and a few bucks before an election. But I reckon they'll keep up their attack on the lack of wages growth and the fact that even under this budget, we're going to have to wait till next year.
Next year,
and
correct.
even then it's only just getting ahead of inflation.
That's right.
So I think that still becomes the contest coming out of this.
Hello?
Hello, team. Is that Mr. Chris Richardson?
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
We always add the extra year in each budget.
Treasurer, just wanted more. What have you got for young people in this budget? People under 25?
Well, Lucy, here we are on budget night and we've been picking over what's in it for regional Australia, and it's pretty evident there's one major winner.
Yeah, Barnaby Joyce, the Deputy Prime Minister and, of course, the Nationals leader. He's got $7.1 billion for a new regional energy security plan.
Energy security and regional development.
Oh, that's it, sorry. I'm surprised it's not an acronym, actually, but anyway. So that is basically funding so-called nation-building infrastructure projects in the region. So upgrading mining roads, upgrading ports.
And it's happening in some pretty interesting places.
Yeah.
WA's Pilbara, the Northern Territory, Central and Northern Queensland, and the Hunter in New South Wales.
So all areas that the Coalition will be targeting, or keen to target, obviously, in this year's federal election.
Draw what conclusions you like from that.
If you take a step back and you look at it, think back to the Glasgow summit. The Prime Minister had to get the Nats to support net zero by 2050. There were a few favours
swapped. In fact, the
swapped.
Nats really changed leader because of that very issue.
So effectively in those negotiations, it's pretty clear now in this budget that one of the things, or a couple of the things they got, was this $7 billion fund for infrastructure and also this $2 billion fund to accelerate regional Australia. So that's all becoming a bit clearer now.
Okay, I'll see you over that one.
Roll up for the big budget giveaway.
It was a budget focused on the cost of living.
Nice to be with you, Michael.
And the checks and balances are there.
The low and middle income tax offset.
A hard sell if you're a government in electoral trouble on the cusp of a campaign.
We've heard their concerns, we've responded and acted.
Well, this has all the sincerity of a fake tan.
We're going to heckle.
Please welcome the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg.
The Treasurer not hiding the naked politics of his fourth budget.
My focus is on winning the election.
This Prime Minister's budget contains $3 billion in secret cuts. What are they?
It comes out in that column and it goes in another column, genius. That's how budget works, Mr. Speaker. So I'll put my 8 budgets up to your 0 every single time.
Anthony Albanese will make his first big election pitch tonight, promising major aged care reform.
The Labor Party has pledged to fix nursing homes with a $2.5 billion package if it wins the upcoming federal election.
Tonight I'm announcing Labor's plan to put security, dignity, quality and humanity back into aged care. A Labor government I lead will back a real pay rise for aged care workers.
So, Brett, we've had the government budget that's been totally focused on cost of living. Budget reply, Anthony Albanese, he goes for the jugular, the political jugular, the point of weakness for this government. Aged care.
Scott Morrison hoped that the budget would give him a chance to reset the political priorities, but just an hour after that budget was handed down in the Senate, one of his own was laying the boots in.
Morrison is not fit to be Prime Minister.
Connie Fierravanti-Wells attacking Scott Morrison's character. Now, if there is one vulnerability in the coalition ranks, especially as it goes into an election, it is the character of Scott Morrison.
His actions conflict with his portrayal as a man of faith. He has used his so-called faith as a marketing advantage. It is his way or the highway, an autocrat, a bully who has no moral compass.
Now, Connie Fierravanti-Wells has reason to be cross, but she's also got reasons to be particularly venomous about Scott Morrison. But what she did, she attacked his character. She's accusing him of engineering her downfall, so she's got reason to be furious.
I understand that Connie is disappointed that as 500 members of the Liberal Party came to select our candidates for the Senate at the next election, that she was unsuccessful.
All that's left now is for Scott Morrison to go to the Governor-General, get an election called. You can guarantee, after what we saw from the last campaign, he will be spending every day out on those streets, meeting people, shaking hands, maybe kissing babies, in the hope that he can get that fourth term.